Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I hope everything is well. Welcome back. Today is our good evening. Today is our second Monday of the month. Um, it's the 14th of August, and it's usually that month that starts on the 7th, right? The first Monday is on the 7th. The second Monday is almost halfway through the month. Um, welcome everyone. Welcome the ones who are watching us online as well. And this meeting happens only once a month. It's been happening for a few years now. I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. I can't really remember, and I don't want to remember as well. So. We usually do an initial prayer, then we invite someone to read a message and give us a little discussion about it. And Mariana is going to do it tonight for us from the book of Daily Bread, chapter 155, if I'm not mistaken. And right after that, I will be back to talk to you guys and have a conversation about a topic from the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's a message that I should have done it last month, but I decided to change it. And last month we talked a little bit about kindness. And if you guys want to watch it, you can always go online to our channel on YouTube, and we have all the English lectures, all the English public talks right there on our channel. And every Saturday we also have our talks, but in Portuguese. So we have a few good topics. They are saved on our YouTube channel. But before we invite Mariana, let's do our initial prayer here, and then I'll be back in a few minutes after her. If you want to close your eyes, if we want to reach out even deeper within us, within our hearts, to think about the good spirits, think about our Master Jesus, and above all, think about our Creator, our Father, our Mother, God, the one who gave us, and will always give us life by saying and thinking. Dear God, our friend, we are here tonight once again, together, to reach within our hearts, to find you. Because so many times we try to find you outside of ourselves. And we all know that you live within our hearts, within our conscience. So tonight, help us with the messages that we're going to read and talk about and discuss. Help us understand that your love is the one thing that we should always be looking forward to. Because your love heals us, brings us peace, brings us hope, brings us strength and power to keep going on, to walk on this earth, to face our problems, and to learn to be happy. So may your love tonight join us together in this beautiful search for our souls, for you inside our souls, for your love inside our souls. May your love bless us all tonight and always. So be it. So let's invite Mariana. She's going to talk to us. She will explain everything.
Not everything.
Yeah.
I'll explain some of it. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be very brief because Mac always has a lot to say, and he's very wise. So we always come here hoping to hear a lot from him and learn a lot from him, right? So, like you said, we're reading from Our Daily Bread by Chico Xavier, by the Spirit of Emmanuel, chapter 155, with the title Against Foolishness. And Paul writes on his letter, and Emmanuel takes a little piece of it, and he says, "Are you so foolish that having begun the Spirit, you have ended up in the flesh?" And that's a great question for all of us, as we all begun as spirits, and we're living here on the material world, thinking all about material things, right? And then Emmanuel comes and he explains to us this matter. One of the greatest disasters on the disciples' path is the erroneous understanding with which they begin their efforts in the higher spheres, but end up reversing course towards the lower realms. Those they are like prospectors who starts out looking for gold but wind up being content with the muck of the swampland. Such failures are common in the areas of religious thought. We see patients who direct their thoughts to the higher realms, nurturing noble impulses and precious intentions. Once healed, however, they think about the best way to use their newly found health to acquire easy money. After being assisted by friends from the sublime spheres regarding the transcendental issues of eternal life. In their quest for unworthy objectives, they try to attribute to those same benefactors the role of human police. Countless disciples persist in working for the good. However, when less favorable times appear, they passively yield to discouragement and demand a reward for the many few years on earth in which they try to serve in the harvest of the divine master. They completely overlook the many millennia in which they have been served by the Lord. Such spiritual anomalies, which interferes greatly with disciples' efforts, originate from the poisonous filter composed of the strong desire for recompense. Therefore, let us strive against the expectations of reward, so that in the company of humanity, the barrier of the imperishable light, we may proceed with the task we have started. Once again, Emmanuel comes to enlighten us about our work in the spiritual matter, not in the material matter. That we all work for money. That we all know we work for money. But spiritually speaking, we've heard something from Chico that was passed by Andre Luis that gave us some understanding of what might be happening on the other side. He taught us something about bonus hours. Everyone who read any of Andre Luis' book know about bonus hours. And somehow we try to work here for a bonus hours on the other side. We are always looking for rewards. And Emmanuel is here telling us, first Paul tells us, not to look for rewards. And then Emmanuel comes and he tries to explain to us why we shouldn't be looking for rewards. And we still do. We always do. And we'll always look for rewards no matter what. That's because we're humans and because we think that we are worth more than we are. And we end up forgetting that before we were worth what we are today, we were worth nothing. We come from many, many mistakes, like he says, and from millennials, from many, many years, thousands and thousands of years, doing so many wrong things, from being a murderer to being a thief, from being whatever. Just because we're a tiny bit better, we're thinking that we are worth a lot. Well, we're not. And the other thing that Emmanuel brings to us that that basically shook me was you come here for help, you get the help you wanted, you get the help you needed, then you're out of the door, and you think that we gotta keep helping you from up here, and we gotta do everything for you, and we gotta give you money. He literally uses the word money here. He says, they think about the best way to use their newly found health to acquire easy money. The health we got here from being helped. We think that we deserve to be paid for. It's so unbelievable. I heard a thing once. I don't know if it was Givaldo. I don't know who said it, but I thought it was very interesting. He said that we only look for any spiritual help for three reasons. First of all, is to study as a school. Second of all, is for a hospital cause, because we need to heal something inside of us. And the third one is to work. So 90% of us, even more, only come for the hospital part. And once we're cured, we're out. We don't care. And then 8% comes for the school. Come to learn. We are here to learn. We are here to know what's beyond this. We're here to try to understand. And 2% are willing to work. Isn't it crazy how we all come here for help, but we don't want to put anything, any time, any love, any hard working into it? We were talking outside about our good friend Chris, who is here almost every day. She is a workaholic for this place. She works like a maniac here. She cleans the place, she cooks, she does the accounting, she does everything around here. She's here Monday, Thursdays, Fridays. She's here out of days that there's nothing going on here, just to clean, just to organize, and then she goes home and then she's doing the accounting for here. She does all of this. Now, I'm looking at a bunch of us here. I've never seen so many people here on a Monday that is in English. And how many of us here does 1/3 of what she does for this place? Or even if it's not for here, for any charity or anything beyond your own benefit. And the person who gains the most by working and helping is us. We just don't understand it. Or we don't want to understand that, because once you do understand it, then you have to do something about it, right? At least that's how it is with me. If I get to an understanding, then I have to do it. But if I don't understand, if I don't know about it, let's just leave it that way, right? Isn't it easier? So this is what this lesson is about. Is about finding a way to help, finding a way to work, finding a way of thinking outside the box and thinking outside of yourself and seeing others. And maybe after you start seeing all of that, you will begin to really heal. Because even though this is a hospital and you can get cured here, Once you walk out the door, you can get sick again. But maybe if you putting some of that towards helping and working and doing something beyond just looking at yourself, maybe you gain more out of this. Maybe you will even gain some bonus hours, like Andre's taught us. That's all I got. Thank you so much, Mac. The mic is all yours.
Eu gosto de encostar.
Good evening again to everyone. Thank you, Mariana, for the excellent and very timely lesson for all of us about work and about what we all need to do. So tonight, as I was saying, we are continuing with our meetings in English, and what we do every Monday, where we have the meetings in English. Right now, we are following and going along with the lessons of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which one of the covers is this one here. There are different covers for it. And we are right now, tonight, we're going to finish to talk about chapter number 12, which has the title of Love Your Enemies. And we've been talking a little bit about this for the past, 6 months or a little bit more. I don't know how many topics we had, and we talked about hatred. We talked about, love your own enemies. Do not do the same as people do to us. Do it differently. We talked about enemies that we have that we may not even see them, which are the people who already died. We talked about vengeance. And tonight we are going to discuss one topic that, to a certain degree, in Kardec, even at his time, said that it might be outdated already. Meaning that probably even on his days, there was not a lot more of dueling. So maybe it's not a word that we often use in English, or at least not to our, not being Americans. Maybe we haven't heard it as often or as frequent. But everybody knows probably everybody knows what a sword is. Or let's start with a knife, right? Everybody knows what a knife is, especially because when we get to the United States from Brazil, people tell us, and they are sure to do that, and they're right to do that. Never say the word for knife out in public. The Portuguese word for knife, never say it out in public, because people will start looking at you thinking that you're fighting, that you're saying a bad word, because it sounds so much like a bad word that we learn. Probably knife is the first word that everybody learns in English when they get here, not in Brazil, not outside, but when we get here. Oh no, don't say that, right? Yeah. I heard that a few times, so we learn how to not to say it. So everybody knows what a knife is, right? A sword is a knife that's much bigger, right? So a sword is, we don't use it anymore. We used to use it in the past. I guess that the only swords that are used these days that we hear about is when they are doing the what do we call it? Fencing, right? Where they fence on the Olympics, right? So the guys come with the swords I don't know, I think that they're not even called swords. They have their own specific names. But to us, the layman, that we don't know the word, right? So those are swords. And that probably started because in the past, people would fight with swords, but to kill themselves. And of course, when there was no guns, no powder, or no specific guns or arms, they would have the bow and arrow, right? They would have stones. They would kill by stoning, or they would fight with swords. And dueling was when someone would call on the other person and say, "So you offended my wife, you offended my family, you did something to me or to someone that I'm protecting, and now I'm calling you to fight with you so that we can resolve that problem." And instead of resolving the problem in talking and having a conversation, they would solve it by trying to kill each other. That's very nice, right? That's something that's, probably, I was going to say that probably we should have this these days, but probably I shouldn't say that, right? Because, I mean, even when it's prohibited, we still see a lot of this happening. Not with swords anymore, but in other different ways. And that's why Kardec at the time, or in some of the readings for this, he says that, okay, I know that I am talking about something, I'm putting this in the book, but this is something that doesn't happen anymore. You don't see people going out inviting the other to use a sword to kill each other. There was a time when it was not swords anymore. When guns started to become something real, they would start with guns. And we see this where in Western movies, right? People, right? Huh? Yeah. So, and then you walk one in the back, back to back, they walk, and then they shoot each other, right? And one dies, the other one doesn't die. You never know. In movies, it's funny, right? You never know who dies, right? They show the face of both of them, and they look nice. They look like they're both okay. Or one is kind of like hurting, and then you think that the one is hurting is going to die, and actually is the other guy that is going to die. So we never know, and that's the other thing. We never know what's going to happen. And sometimes in these duels, what would happen is, if a person actually invited the other for dueling, it's because he is so sure that he's going to win. Even if he's wrong, he's going to win anyways because he's the one that has more money. He's the one that has the better gun. He's the one that knows how to shoot better. And probably he will go out of that idea or that ordeal looking better for the society of the time. So once again, Kardec says, okay, this is outdated. This is something that doesn't happen even in 1850 or in 1860s. In the 1860s, I mean, almost 200 years ago already. But he goes and he says, and I'm going to read it, so it's better. It's a very short sentence that he says. And he says, where does he say? Should have. He says there. Actually, we continue to practice a more subtle form of dueling nowadays in our daily lives by using words and other antagonistic attitudes that are just as destructive. So I'm going to translate. Actually, this is not Kardec. This is one of the editors of the book that later on put it and made a connection between the Gospel according to Spiritism and the Spirit's book, where he deals with the topic in both books. Do we still duel these days?
Not with swords.
Well, not with swords, that's for sure. I don't know any samurai here. Not even the eyes. I cannot see the eyes of a samurai here. right? Sometimes you see like a Japanese person or an Asiatic person who might think about being a samurai, but I don't
Fabrizio,
see
what are
it.
you talking about?
Fabrizio to me looks more like a Frenchman, which would like to duel a lot as well. So, but not with samurai swords. Um, we don't use swords anymore. In certain places, we hear stories sometimes that people still do with guns, not as in the old days, but you say it, and when we are very young sometimes, or we tend to say, I'm going to get you outside, right? And then they call the other one to fight, right, outside. This is still this um, I shouldn't say this word, but maybe it's an instinctive behavior that we still didn't overcome. Because when we look at ourselves and we look at animals, right? If we get a great ape, uh, uh, um, a gorilla, for example, or a chimpanzee, which are the great apes, the ones that resemble much more to humans, there's less than 1% difference in DNA. It's less than 1% difference. Even a mollusk or any kind of small animal that lives under the earth, it's less than 10% difference from our DNA. To see how close we are physically, how close we are in our bodies. So it is as if because of all the evolution that the human species and the animal species went throughout time, we still have something inside of us that resembles all that we learned that ourselves as physical bodies learned, and that we can't avoid to a certain degree. But when we start developing our mind, our self-consciousness, that's what we have to start using to learn to control what our body wants to do. That's where education comes in. So that we have to learn how to, okay, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. When? That's the first question. Then, how? Why? These questions are not the body asking. These questions are our minds asking. Why should I do that? What are the consequences? The more we start thinking about it, the more we start taking conscience of ourselves and of the consequences of our actions, that whatever I do here, I will have to respond to those later on. I have to get the answers to those questions and bring and fight against some of the things that I feel, that my body imposes on me. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not start today, tomorrow, everything is done. And we all know that. We all know that that is not the case for almost anything, right? So we go to a church, we go to a Espírita center, we go to a philosophical place, we go to a Buddhist place, it doesn't matter where. The first moments we are there that we recognize ourselves, or we like the way the person talks or the group, or we like the message, then we feel that that sensation or that feeling of, oh, that's nice, and then we start to get happy, and we say, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I start coming, and I start doing, and I start like having the hope that I'm going to change. Then 1 month, and 2 months, and 3 months, and then all of a sudden I'm still myself. I'm not Jesus from one day to the other. I'm not Buddha from one day to the other. I'm not Gandhi from one day to the other, because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It works when we work every single day for a very long time. If we want to educate a kid, we have to educate that kid, the girl or the boy, every single day until one day. And even after saying so many times, repeating so many times the same thing, come and you see the kid and still doing the same thing as we said. Don't do it. You're going to regret it. You know, every time I'm talking to my brothers or my sisters and come the topic of us doing wrong things in the house, right? And we start laughing with each other and remembering, oh, my mom did this, my dad did this, and then they always remind me of a story that I don't know because, I don't remember because I was very young. And that was last century, last millennium, no, not last millennium, last century. That my mom was probably telling me all the time, don't put your finger on the power, right? On the power outlet. Don't put your finger on the power outlet. Here is harder. It's a strip. It's kind of hard for a baby to put the finger in. Even being harder, you have those plugs that you put it there, right? So that you don't grab a knife or something and put it inside. But one day, tells my mom, after telling me so many times that I shouldn't do it, what did she see? That I was walking right straight to the power outlet, right there. And my finger was, I don't remember if I was carrying something with my hand. And my mom was far away. She wouldn't be able to get to me. What does she do? She gets a flip-flop. She gets a flip-flop, right there. I can see one, a pink one right there.
Mom.
She gets it and bam! And of course I'm crying and all that stuff, but at least I'm still alive, right?
And you learn.
And I learned. I hope I learned. I don't know if after that I still went to do it again. And how many times have we had to hear the same thing, to read the same thing, and even after so many times, we find ourselves repeating the same thing again. It is natural. It's part of the learning process. As we are learning a language, for example, and here we are always learners of language. It doesn't matter what language. Sometimes I discover with for example, I have a boss, and my boss is American. He is married to a Brazilian woman, right? And he has a mind that I love. I love his mind because he like twists and turns. His mind goes in completely weird ways, and that teaches a lot about whatever we are doing. And sometimes when we are together sitting down and he's writing, scribbling something on the plans, and I ask, and he's quiet, he's silent. I'm watching what he's doing, and he is looking at the things. It's a plan of a house, for example, and then he's looking at things, and then he points to something, and then he grabs a ruler and measures, and then he writes something, and then he says, oh, I'm going to do this here. And then I look at him and I say, I want to hear you thinking. Let me know how you're thinking, because just by seeing it, I cannot understand where his mind is going to get to that result. And I want to see it. And then sometimes he goes and says, oh, I'm doing this because of this and this, and he explains it so that I can learn too, right? So, but he does that also in languages, and he loves languages. And being married to a Brazilian woman, he likes to listen to Brazilian music. He likes to try to understand what they're singing. He tries to understand the lyrics, the meanings, and we all know that, there are expressions that have no meaning at all if you translate just the words, right? In Portuguese, everybody here would know that if I say cara, everybody knows what we're saying, right? We're calling a person, right? We're calling a person. But we can never translate this to English and say face. It makes no sense because cara would have to be translated to guy or man, not to face. But cara is face. If you go into the dictionary and you look at cara, the first translation to English is face. So, but you cannot translate it to face. So one day he comes to me and uh, he says, what is avião? He already knew what avião was. Avião is plane, right? And he says, don't you think that avião is a big bird? Because you see, so I had, because ave is bird, right? In Portuguese, we do for the big things. So we merge two things, right? And then he looks at the word in a completely different way that I had never, being a Brazilian guy, having always learned the word, I had never thought about this. You see how our mind works, and sometimes we're so stuck into something that we cannot go other ways. And it takes sometimes other stuff coming from the outside for us to change, for us to see it differently. Emmanuel, as Mariana was saying here, he sometimes he says something in one message, like the one she read here, and then he goes to a different message in a different book, and he talks about the same topic, the same specific topic, but he goes from a completely different perspective. And one day, someone asked him why he does that, and he says, because different people take or learn the same thing through different ways. And sometimes that message is important for me, but I cannot understand it when stated this way. But when I say it this way, it will make sense to me. And then it doesn't matter how many messages it were before. That message is the one that touches me, and that's it.
And Jesus did the same.
Exactly.
He did a bunch of different stories to show the same thing.
Yeah. And that's how we learn. But we complain that people are repeating stuff, that people are saying the same stuff. Since we are kids, my two daughters, you repeat yourself a lot. And then, like 5 days later, they're doing the same thing. And I ask them, should I repeat it once more? Because, I mean, I already told you. You already know what you need to do, and you're not doing it. So what do you want me to do? Then sometimes I would just stay quiet and look. Because they already know. And we've been kids, right? Some of us are still kids, right? But we've been kids, and we know that that's how it happens. Does it change when you're adults? I don't think so. I don't see that it changes. It's just that nobody is out there right now telling me all the time to do this. Because they look at me and they say, oh, you're an adult. You have your... But if they could, they would be saying, oh, here he is doing the same thing again. And here he is doing the same. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. You should... When we are married, sometimes we have that thing from our mother or from our husband, right? Or from our father or mother. No, I said married, right?
Yes.
So I'm talking about husband and wife, not father and mother, right? So, but we hear that all the time. Sometimes from the husband, sometimes from the wife. Why? Because they look at us as equals, or as someone that needs to take care of them, and we keep repeating the same thing. Why? Because we don't learn.
Or we just want to annoy them.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's on purpose. I already told you not to do that. Oh, I forgot. Then we do it again. Let's come back to dueling. We don't fight anymore with guns. At least, hopefully, not in this place. We know that it happens outside. We know that, but let's imagine, not that we are better than who uses, not that we are better than who does it, because it's their own predicament. We do what we want to do, period. It doesn't matter. We do what we want to do. So we're not judging who does it. But the way we see it, if we are here, is that is a barbarian costume. It's a barbarian attitude. It's something that stayed in the past, that we don't do it anymore. So let's all agree that we don't do that anymore, that we don't duel with guns anymore, that we don't use those things anymore, right? So we, for ourselves, not to compare with anybody, we, for ourselves, we are better than we were before. Believing all of us that we had lived before, we are better than we were before. And tonight, we are the best version of ourselves. Maybe tomorrow we will be the best version of ourselves, better than today, and so on. So if we are planning to be better, if we are planning to improve on ourselves, we have to start thinking, using this lesson to start thinking, am I still dueling in a different way with my own life, with people in my circle of friendship or my circle in our work? How much of my attitude, how much of what I do is because the other is provoking me? If I'm doing something because the other is provoking me and I'm entering in that same level, what am I doing? I'm accepting the invitation for dueling. If I retire myself, then I am starting to understand that there is no need to duel. But since it is something that is from the inside, the society or the world usually invites us to compete with each other. It is very, very rare that we see any kind of thing that is not a competition these days. We all love reality shows. Some love the ones that talk about food. Some love the ones that talk about gossip. Some love about whatever, it doesn't matter. It's always a competition. I love this small thing that happens in Brazilian television. It's called Little Geniuses. So it's kids who have these special abilities with dealing with words, dealing with mathematics, dealing with like the brain and knowledge. And it's awesome to watch, because to see them doing stuff that I cannot do. And they are like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds doing math calculations that it takes 10 minutes to do for me. And they, just by looking at the numbers, when the host finishes reading the operations, there was one yesterday that I saw that finish the numbers, he said the result. It's like 10 plus 5 minus 25 times something divided by something plus something minus something, and he says the number. It's like that. I find that awesome to watch. But then it's one group against the other. It's one group competing with the other. So one needs to be, and why there is so much of this today? Still, because we love competition. The day we stop having this idea of accepting this fighting, these types of shows, these types of things will fall. Just like so many different types and styles of shows in the past disappeared. Because it just fell out of, okay, people are not interested in this type of thing anymore. But if we look at, for example, fighting sports, it's in the rise. It's everywhere. And what is it if not the most brutal form of competition? We understand, and not criticizing, criticizing, but I'm just bringing to our minds the idea that if we think, and sometimes we judge people that were dueling in the past, and so, oh, I'm so glad that doesn't happen anymore. But then you go take your frustrations on people, be it in the rink, be it in life, be it online. How much dueling and fighting we have online these days? You go read a comment of something, a person does a joke or whatever. And then comes people, lots of people come and start criticizing and start fighting. Oh, because this joke or that joke. I'm not saying that you cannot express your opinion. We can express our opinion, but do we need to enter in a dueling state and really, really, really lose friendships, create like a bad environment independently of what it is, of where it is? So it appears to me that this is all part of a process of us growing up. Because we don't duel anymore physically, we transferred that idea of dueling into less harmful places, or apparently less harmful forms of dueling, which is to a certain degree true, because you're not killing the person, you're not just eliminating the person. But don't we have the same thing, and sometimes even worse, when we lead people with bullying, for example, into having a lifetime of psychological problems, into putting people in such a state of having depression, anxiety, because of the way we treat them, because of the way we do stuff to them,
Low self-esteem.
low self-esteem. And but my question, which is, I think it's, to me, it's the most important one, because it's not for the others. It's not for you who are listening. It's for me who are speaking. It's how much am I doing it? Because this is the most important thing. When I do something, it is as if I have the permission to do it, because I'm the king of my own kingdom, so I can do it. And it's so natural for me to do it that I don't even notice, that I don't even know that I'm doing it. Or if I know that I'm doing, I tend to believe that I have a justification, an excuse to do it. So I just do it. But when we look at another person doing the same type of thing to someone else, I see it. And I point the finger and I start. But if the other person is doing it, once again, is the other person's business. It's not my business. But what I do is my business, is my responsibility. The consequences will be from within to without. And then when something happens to me, what can I say? Usually, I'm going to blame the others. I'm going to blame God. I'm going to blame whatever it is, because I'm suffering from this or I'm suffering from that. Because I didn't pay attention to how much I am being obnoxious, I am being an intruder in the other person's life. Am I being too much in saying this? And when I say something, if the other person is not balanced enough, they will say something back to me. And then because I started, usually I'm not balanced enough, so I'm going to say something back. And then the other person will say something back to me. And the back and forth is nothing else than little spikes, little swords, little guns aiming at each other, trying to put the other down. You know how we see these days as well in our culture? What we call the canceling culture. The same type of idea. We see something that we don't agree with, or that, and then we call it to be canceled. That person is canceled. So it is as if we have we want to have the power to be a dictator, to shut who doesn't agree with me. and we end up in a certain way losing the battle because we usually tend to look at only one side. We don't like and we don't have the time to look at both sides of the story, or to look at three sides of the story, or four sides of the story, or 5 or 10 sides of the story. We know one side, we take that part, and then we follow along. We don't step back and read the other side just to have a better understanding. So these days, I am seeing when I'm reading these messages, and I'm reading from, like I always say, I invite everyone to read the book or the messages that I'm talking about, because sometimes I mention stuff from the messages, sometimes I don't mention stuff from the messages, but everything that I'm talking about was inspired by the ideas that I get from these messages. And if you guys want to take a different look, a different approach, you should read it. Because you shouldn't believe only what I say. I'm saying from one side. There are, I don't know, 25 sides here to the same story. And if we talked, it would be different. People would say something, and then we would all contribute to the discussion. So when we are in our day-to-day lives, right, and someone offends me, in the past, depending on the offense, I would call it for the arms, for the gun, for the sword. These days, we say, I'll catch you outside. I'll post a bad review on YouTube or on, and then the other one will fight back doing something different, or writing, or responding, or doing this, or doing that. How do we break the cycle? And that, because that's the other, or how we should end up. How do we break the cycle? How do we get out of that? First of all, if I don't want to get out, and people might say, oh, but you're offending my honor. But what is that honor? And the question that I always pose myself when we're talking about this topic of being selfish, or being too, having the pride hurt or the honor hurt, is always ask yourself, okay, if the person that you think is offending you is telling the truth, why is that offensive? If it's the truth, why is that offensive? And if the person is lying, and you know that the person is lying, why is that offensive? You know it's a lie. The other person is the one that's a liar. I am not a liar. If the person is telling a lie about me, I am not a liar. I know that there are consequences, depending on what it is, how it is. I know that there are consequences. I know that some lies, depending on how they are told, and how well taken care of, and they can they can destroy reputations. They can put people in certain ways, and so on. But if my conscience is clear, and I want to enjoy life as pure as I can, maybe it's better that the other person is doing that. I'm not saying that we should not fight back in the way of, hey, why are you doing this? But if I if I go down at the same level as the other one, if I go down to the same floor that the other one is, what am I doing if not being as bad or as terrible as the other person? So if I'm accepting the duel, I am doing as bad as the other person. So if I'm accepting the duel, it means to me, and I accepted duels, and maybe I still do, but I'm going against what I really believe, or at least what I like to think that I really believe. that I want to be a better person. If I accept the duel, I am not being the person that I really want to be, which is getting rid of my pride. Because pride only brings us down to the level of the others. When I'm outside of pride, I'm outside of this honor level, I am myself. And I'm going to give examples or one or two examples of people that we all know, and that to a certain degree, we look at them, at least I look at them, and maybe you too, but I don't know. You look at them in a different light. And I'm going to cite, for example, an American actor, Tom Hanks. I guess everybody have heard of Tom Hanks, right? One movie or another, and he's really famous. Not kind of famous, he's really famous. What I like, or when I see Tom Hanks, I look at him as if he is not from this world. Because we never see Tom Hanks in the big highlights of the big things happening, and he is like doing these crazy stunts, or he is like the biggest. To me, when I look at him, although we recognize his face, to me it feels like he's a regular person, as if he doesn't let this thing that makes him big make him bigger than what he really is. That's how I see him. And I see other actors the same way. Tom Hanks was the one that came to my mind, but there are others. And there are other actors that are like tiny actors. They are not like big actors. But it's, when you look at that person, it is as if he or she is the greatest actor that ever lived, that does everything. And then to me, that diminishes the person to a level that it's kind of even hard to really see who that person is. Maybe the person is great. Maybe the person is the best person. But it's so involved in that pride, in that vanity, in that thing, that we lose focus on what really is. And maybe Tom Hanks is a terrible person. And we don't know. But at least, I guess you understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm not saying for us to be a bad person and fake that we're a good person. No, I'm saying is we have to be true to ourselves, trying to be the best that we can, not to get down and to lower down to the level of being dueling with the others, with being selfish, so selfish that we cannot see that by doing a duel with someone else, I am bringing the other person down together with me, and we are going down into the mud, fighting into the mud and being all dirty, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. It might be hard to step out and say, I'm not going to enter this fight. It might be. But once we get to understand that even though it might be hard, it is the best option for us to grow. It will not make it, let's say, really, really, really easy. But it will put it down a notch. And we are going to be able to have at least one more second of reflection before doing it. And maybe that second of reflection will allow us not to do it. Or even if we do it, maybe the next time we will be able not to do it because we already thought about it. And when we think about something in advance, it makes it a little bit easier for us not to fall into the trap. Because the biggest thing is sometimes we are caught up in a trap, and then how do we get out of it? I guess that everybody here watched that movie, Back to the Future. If you always, okay, but it's not going to be a spoiler, because it would be a spoiler of 40 years, right? So it's kind of hard to have a spoiler of 40 years old. So all the things in Beef, or I think it's Beef, whatever his name is, calls Marty McFly chicken. And every time he calls Marty McFly a chicken, he falls for the trap. And then he goes fight Beef, and he loses because Beef is a big guy. He's a bully. He has everybody that can help him, and he falls for the trap. Comes the end of the movie. They're both in a truck. Beef is right there, accelerating the truck. And he is right there, accelerating his truck too. And they're going to go for it. Light turns green. Both of them accelerate at the same time. Heavy foot. Beef goes straight ahead. Marty McFly rear the car. He stops. Beef hits something in front. The car passes right by. Marty looks at it and said, I would have been hit by that car. Beef destroys his car, doesn't die. Nothing really serious happened to him. And he stops and he looks at it and he gets a newspaper and looks at the newspaper, and the future is changed. Because he didn't go into the duel with that guy. He would have been hit, probably would have been in a hospital, probably would have been dead. In the future life of the next movie or whatever, his life would be a mess because of one small action. Because he accepted dueling. If we backtrack and we stay true to ourselves, to the better selves, not to who we are, but to who we really want to be, the future tends to be much, much brighter. So, once again, chapter 12, love your enemies, items 11 to 16, from the Gospel according to Spiritism. I highly recommend reading the text. There are a few messages from different spirits, and 3 questions from the book, from the Spirit's book. Check questions 7, 57, 58, and 59. 1 page, or starts here and finishes right here. But this book has big letters, so it's very tiny, but very deep, full meaning answers to the idea of the dueling, with some of the reflections that or the ideas that we discussed tonight. And I hope you didn't duel with me too much tonight mentally, like throwing stuff at me, saying, "Hey, you're doing this, you're doing this." I hope not. But I'd like to thank you all for coming here in this very nice day. It was really warm outside. It's still really warm inside here. I'd like to invite everyone who understands Portuguese and wants to come on Saturday. We're going to have, for the next 2 Saturdays, this next one and the 26th, we're going to have Roberto Barbosa here. He's going to do treatments, body treatments to us. It's without touching, without any touchings, an energetic treatment. And at night, from this will start at 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Adriana has a list there with if you guys want to come, we can spend a few minutes explaining if you need to. Adriana knows everything. She can even explain in English too. And if you guys need Italian, she also does. Oh, here comes a flip-flop line. We can give explanation of how it works, but he's going to be here this Saturday, next Saturday from 2 to 5, and at night from 7 to 8, he's going to give a talk to us like I'm doing here, but all in Portuguese. And after the meeting, when I'll go and close everything there for the people who are online. we have the passes, and the passes is a transference of energy from one person to the other. And this somewhat kind here in the United States, what's more famous is what they call Reiki, right? Which is a passing or a laying on of the hands. And that's what the passes are. And the passes is a treatment that's been practiced in Brazil and through Spiritism for, I don't know, 50, 60, or 100 years already. And we do this after we finish here. So if you guys want to do it, just stay in your seats. And Adriana, Nancy, and I don't know who else, Mariana, Fabrício. So a few people will help us going into the room where we sit, and then we do the treatment, a few minutes, and then we all go out and we can walk freely home. There's no chains, no red.
And the passes are not mandatory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Adriana told me that, and I forgot. And you take the passes if you want to take the passes. If you don't want to take the passes, and we are all, like I was saying, free, no chains, no nothing attached, no strings attached. Yeah, we can all go home, and that's fine. So let's do our final prayer, and just to thank the good spirits, to thank our Master Jesus, who taught us to love our enemies and to give our best in our lives so that we can be better people. And to thank God for the life that we have, for the life that we received, for the love that we received. And may we, with their help, give a little bit of this life and of this love to the ones that surround us. So Jesus, thank you for all the blessings, for your help, for your companionship, for your friendship, for your guidance. And thank you for your help on our day-to-day lives. May your love, may your compassion, may your forgiveness walk around with us so that we can help other people the same way you are helping us, not only now, but for always and always. So be it. So, yeah, so you're going to help us.
The roast.